Hey, good afternoon and happy Monday, everyone. It's Brenda Meller with Meller Marketing, bringing you another edition of Social Media Pie. Very excited today because we're going to have marketing nerd talk on here. I think we're going to call it, right? We're going to talk about the Consumer Continuum. And I have my friend Julianna Kudemeyer. I'm going to call her Julie. But Julie, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. And before we get started, I want to talk about the backstory, you guys, between how I originally met Julie and then I kind of re-engaged with her recently. So I was at a national conference. It was not quite a year ago. And it was one of these events where it's like a 3-day, and like on the third day, how everybody starts to leave. And I'm like booked for like the last session of the third day. And I'm like the whole conference, I'm trying to like rile people up. I'm doing a LinkedIn session, come to my session. And everywhere I could, I was like trying to promote it. And I was so worried that nobody was going to show up. And as it turns out, it was like packed, standing room only, like nobody could get in the room. It was like, I don't know if it was the topic or if it was because it was the last day and people wanted to get one more session before they left. But at any rate, Julie was in the room. And this is interesting. So when I'm at a conference, when I'm speaking, I give away pie because you guys know, if you know me, I love my pie, right? And so I started passing around. I picked this up from Michael's, and this is it's a pie tin. It's actually something you're supposed to hook it on your wall. And I pass this around the room and I say, if you want to get in my drawing for a pie, throw your business cards in here. So I go to an event and I get, a bunch of business cards that are thrown in here. And I get back from the conference and I'm going through the business cards and I was like, ooh, what's this? This is interesting. And it's like a coaster. And
I actually have a cleaner one.
Do you? So, and I've had this like literally on my nightstand, Julie. It's kind of, you can see it kind of close up. And I've had this on my nightstand like since that conference. It was like last September. And it's now starting to get, you can tell it's kind of like warped. It's been like.
So we updated those. So this is like the new background.
And it's still cardboard, right? The same.
Oh yeah. It's letterpress. And you can actually, we made it so you can just put your name in here.
Love it. It's so clever. So guys, like, I'll be honest with you. I go to conferences. I use these business cards because I connect with people. And then these go into a box or a binder or a drawer on the bookshelf. This one I actually used and I kept seeing her name and I would flip it over and I was like, and then we bumped into each other from another organization. And I said, are you the same Julianna that I see on my coaster, like on my nightstand? She's like, yep, that's me. So, Julie, thank you for joining. I am really excited for this conversation today. Why don't you, I know my backstory, but let's talk about who you are. What are you doing here today? And talk a little bit about your background.
So I am a marketing nerd. I'll just leave it at that. I have a master's degree in marketing, which is essentially like an MBA, but a focus in marketing. I love analytics. I love all the design stuff. I love thinking through the customer experience, and not even just the customer, the employee. I think a lot of times people forget about that. Those are all touch points too with the brand. Mm-hmm. And you're almost like marketing for like new hires and stuff like that by what your inside brand looks like. Absolutely. So that's what I've been doing. I started off at a UX and design house here in Columbus, Ohio, and then went to work for a global app company. If you guys ever heard of Uvu, I was a one-man marketing show for that for a while. And then I was working for a branding agency here in town right before COVID hit, and then tried to start my own business right as COVID hit. So
there you go. Well, it's a good time to start. Yeah. No time like the present, right? And
exactly.
We'll get there. It might just be a little bit of a pause as we're regrouping here. But
I'm not worried about it.
And you've got so much knowledge and experience behind you, Julie. It's just a matter of now kind of pivoting and adapting to this.
Oh yeah. I'm sure a lot of people are in the same boat as me, so I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Awesome. So guys, we're going to be here talking about, and I'm going to put the topic on our screen here today. Oh, I have a typo. I never make mistakes. You guys know I have learning experiences. So I just had a learning experience. Check your title. I just took out my little and I had a quotation mark on there. So we're going to be talking about the consumer continuum and the touch points along the way. And I put, you can see the ticker that's kind of rolling below right now. And I'm just encouraging guys, please comment below. Let us know where in the world you're watching from. I'm in Metro Detroit, which is in Michigan in the USA. Julie, you're in, is it Columbus, Ohio?
Yep, I'm in Columbus.
All right, awesome. And we're both working out of our home offices. We both got some greenery and some things kind of in our background and things that are happening here. Where are you all watching from? So we're broadcasting live right now on Facebook and on LinkedIn. And I want to encourage you. We have some folks that are watching overseas,
India.
from India, from
Right.
Dubai. We have Olivia. I think Olivia's in the States here, if I'm not mistaken. Nice to see you here. We have a LinkedIn user. I can't see your name, but it shows that you're watching from France. So bonjour, thank you for watching us here today. But please drop in your comment. Where are you watching from? We can't see who's watching until you guys drop a comment below. So let us know where you're watching from. And Teresa's one of my connections. Hey, Teresa, nice to see you from Metro Detroit. So I'll be popping your comments up throughout Julie's talk, and then we'll have some time for Q&A a little bit later on. So I just want to say thank you all for watching here today. So Julie, let's jump into this conversation. We're going to be talking about the consumer continuum. So I want to start with, some people might be saying, the who, the what? Like, what is the consumer continuum? What does that mean? So can you start out there?
Well, so everybody's probably heard of a funnel, right? Have you heard of a funnel?
I have, but let's assume someone
Okay.
there is like, a funnel is what you use to put flour into the bowl, right?
Right. Yeah. So a lot of people think of marketing as a funnel. At the top of the funnel, you're doing stuff to attract people into it, and then you work your way down different tactics to try to eventually get them to buy. And then after you buy, it's kind of people forget about you, or the company starts to forget about you. They just want to keep putting you back in the top and feeding you down. Okay. A continuum assumes that it's a relationship. So instead of this one way, like you're just trying to move them along to buy, you build this like you're a best friend, right? So if you could pull up, I actually made Brenda a little slide here.
Let's do this. We're going to try to navigate and show you guys this up on
So
screen.
this is kind of a quick part in my design. I am not a designer. I'm the first to admit that. But this is a little bit of a build off from the Kinsley decision journey, where essentially there's a gray dotted line there leading in. So that gray dotted line is somebody who's completely unaware of your brand. I have no idea what your brand is. I don't know what you make. You just don't exist to me because in my reality, I don't know who you are. So you're just non-existent. At some point in time, they become aware of your brand, whether that's a sponsorship, someone mentioned it, an ad popped up in their news feed, they saw a wrapper on the ground somebody threw. Like, it doesn't matter how, but somebody is exposed to your brand.
Business card at a conference.
Right. You got a business
giveaway.
Card. Right? You see a coffee mug with a brand.
Right.
It doesn't matter how, but they're now aware of you. Okay. And then, so they're traveling along, they're aware of you, but they don't need your services or your product at any point. And then something happens, a trigger. A trigger can be anything. A lot of times it's internal. You're like, oh, I need to buy milk. We're out of milk. I need to buy milk. Yeah. Whatever you think of in that time is an opportunity for a brand to come in and try to get your business. Google has been known to call these micro moments. Brenda, have you heard of those?
I've not, but I've heard of the trigger, and there's even like a pre-trigger. I've heard of like a pre-trigger phase, like my car, and I'll use my car as an analogy. My car, I was in a lease, and my lease is starting to get towards the end, so I'm not yet.
But they're trying to prime you, right? Come back to us. Your lease is almost out. I hope you enjoyed your experience with us. So this trigger can be something where like you get hurt. What hospital are you going to go to? And what hospitals do you think of when you get hurt? If you get a flat tire, what are you going to do? It's just something that at that immediate moment you need something. A lot of times you'll turn to your phone if you don't know the answer, and you'll Google it. And at that point, there's certain tactics that are very important that you pay attention to. But sometimes you already have a set of brands that you already think of. So if I know I need new running shoes, the ones that I think of, Nike, Adidas, and Brooks. Those are your initial consideration set. Those are those brands that you immediately jump to for some reason or another, whether it was past exposure or past experience. You're going to go to that initial consideration set. And then you start actively evaluating these brands. So you'll go online and see if they're having a sale, what other people have said about them. who's selling them, what colors do they have your size, and all along that way you can either add new brands, options that you weren't aware of before, and eliminate brands. So if that initial consideration, I was like, oh, I want these Brooks, they don't have them in my size or a color I like, they're out the door, I'm not going to get them.
Yeah.
And I might be adding stuff in.
Then so I've got an example. Could I jump in and interject? So I'm now in the phase of like my business. I've been doing a lot of webinars and live events, and I'm like, I love presenting, but I'm also like, there's only one of me, and I don't want to scale my business and add team members. So I'm like, well, how can I replicate me? Okay, I've got to do an e-course. So I've put out the ask to a few people, like, what's a good platform? And I've heard of Teachable and Thinkific, and there's a couple other, I can't think of them right now, but there's a couple that have come to mind. And now part of what I'm doing, and maybe I'm in this journey process, I put it out on, I don't put it on LinkedIn because I get so many responses, but I put it on Facebook where it's only my close circle of family and friends. And I might say, hey, I'm looking for a learning platform. I've heard of Teachable and Thinkific. What other ones should I evaluate? And then people say, you should use Thinkific because of XYZ, or don't use Teachable because of these reasons, or look at these 12 others. And then I start to kind of bring others into the consideration set, and I start to kind of push others out as well.
Right. Yeah. And actually in this part of your continuum, as a consumer, you're actually, it's like, I think 2/3 of everything that you look at is word of mouth type stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's not so much like, you're not going to look for an ad technically. Like, you might see if they have a coupon or a sale going on, but you're not going to, you're only going to put so much weight in what the brand is putting out there about their product, because brands always assume their stuff is the best.
Yeah.
So you look to the Google reviews, the Amazon reviews, what your friends have had to say about it, what third-party reviews, like if an influencer has mentioned it, or if Good Housekeeping has ranked it on something. Those things are a lot heavily weighted during this active evaluation phase. Just like you said, you asked your friends, and your friends are all like, don't use this, use this. And something as simple as that can completely like mess with your business if you are the one that's like, oh, wait. And you want to be aware of those, right? You want to be aware if someone's saying something bad.
Well, you want to be aware of, because sometimes like I see an ad, and it's for some, there was one over the weekend. It was like this Instagram ad, and it was a cake. I think it was a pie on the top, and then a cheesecake in the middle, and a cake on the bottom. And they call it, I don't know, it's like turducken. You know what a turducken is?
Yeah.
And they had a name for it, whatever it was, but it was an ad, and I took a screen capture of it and I shared it. And I'm like, because I like pie, my friend likes cheesecake. And then I went to their site, and immediately it was like, sorry, we're sold out. And I'm like, I'm not going to buy it, but it was like $80 for this thing. I'm like, that's crazy.
That is insane.
Then I started looking at the page, and I was looking at the reviews. Like, what are people saying? Is the cake good? Is it dry? Is it, does it get all mashed up in the mail? Or, I start to look at, and I put a question below for you guys, because I'm curious, when you're researching information and reviews on brands, where are you going? Are you going on Facebook? Are you going on Google reviews? Or are you doing Yelp searches when it's restaurants? Where are you looking? I'm kind of curious with that. But for me, I go on their websites, and then I also go on their social media, because I want to see what are people saying, and then how is the brand responding, if there are compliments or criticisms, right, of the brands.
Right. Yeah. So then you get to this point of purchase. Point of purchase is a lot of things. If it's in store, it's waiting in line, going up to the checkout counter. The touch point there is, how long was the wait? How friendly was the staff? How easy was it to use your points if there's a point system? Or just swipe a card, or do you have tapless touch pay type of thing? To online, where online was, how many steps and how much information did I have to fill out to purchase this?
Yeah.
Or when I went through all these steps, is it still available? Like, you went to go look to see if it was available, and it was seemed to be sold out.
We're sold out. And I even messaged the person, because I think I tagged them in the ad, and they said, thank you for tagging us. And I said, hey, are you aware this is sold out? And they were like, oh, snap. And they got a little kind of fun and, feisty. They're like, oh, snap, we're sold out again. Thanks for letting us know. And I'm thinking,
how did you not know?
Well, it's probably I mean, Julie, is probably an agency running it for them.
Right.
They're a major brand. And, there's a disconnect between, the agency. But then coming back into your loop here, I mean, this is affecting the purchase decision. And I'm like,
right.
They're running ads that aren't even legit because I can't.
Well, that's a waste of money at that point, right? Like
Right.
they're spending money for something that they can't even purchase unless their strategy is to build so much, like the cronut, right? The cronut you had to wait around the block to get, and it built so much buzz that all of a sudden it's very coveted.
Yeah.
So if that's what they were trying to get to justify the $80, maybe that's what it was.
I don't know. I'm like, like I said, it's kind of like the turducken. I can't think of the name of it, but it was like, it was just the novelty of layering those three things together. But I guess you got to appreciate the creativity, if nothing else, there.
Right. Yeah. So a lot of things go into that point of purchase. And then once you purchase, what is the post-purchase experience?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're in charge of a software as a service, what's onboarding look like?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have somebody walks them through? Is it videos they can do at their own? Inside software as a service, you can have like little pop-ups. I don't know if some of you guys have seen this, where it's like, they try to do the virtual tour on screen where it's like, do this, do this, do this. This is how you do it. Like that's part of onboarding and makes the post-purchase experience that much smoother.
Right.
For like buying stuff online, the packaging that you get, if there's a handwritten card, if they've really thought about that unpacking kind of experience that weighs into it. If they check in later, like, hey, how was your experience? Even at this point, you can ask, like, you've had it for a month. What do you think about it?
Right.
Would you give us your feedback so we can either improve on it or like leverage it for our reviews and that sort of thing.
So these are all sounding like really interesting, Julie. And I'm wondering, like, a lot of folks that are watching, and they work for a corporation and they may have a marketing department doing this for them or an agency doing this for them. What about small business owners, entrepreneurs? I mean, the people that, like when I went to business for myself, my background is marketing, so I love this kind of stuff. But like accounting and finance, ick. Like I just need to figure out how to manage my money, and then I don't want to deal with anything else. But what about the folks that are on the session that don't have a marketing background? I mean, how could a small business owner apply this process to what they're doing, and what tips would you give for them?
It definitely depends on what industry they're in. Here, it's really good if you can capture some kind of opt-in. So whether that's an address, if it's a shipping address, an email, because then you can send them information. So if you're in finance, these are the things that are important to me. Right now, COVID's happening. If you've lost your job, these are some tips for unemployment. Right. If you have any questions, reach out to me and I'll help you for free. Like those kind of things. Like I'll give you advice, but if you want me to do it for you, then you pay for it. Like those are the kind of things that can help when it comes to finance. If you're in like a realtors, they have this very long lead up time, right? Like once you have a house, they don't necessarily need to be in your life anymore. But as a realtor, if you have friends who are contractors or like there's a big change in market price for loan rates. Like you can send those like, hey, just thought you'd want to be aware of this, or hey, these are the trends that are happening in your area.
But I would say to the realtor thing. So we bought a house last year, and I'm going to give a shout out to Nick Tracy. I'm going to tag him later on here. So we were in the starter family home for a while. We kind of grew out of it, 2 kids, the house gets smaller and smaller, the bathroom gets smaller and smaller. And we were at a breaking point, and I was self-employed. So the basement wasn't working. The kitchen table wasn't working. I needed a home office. So for us, it was a gradual buildup. We knew that we were going to eventually grow out of our first house. And my husband had Nick. They were in a college class together. And then Nick went off. He was actually working in a restaurant for a while, and they just stayed friends on Facebook. And then when we started looking for a house, he was a realtor at that point, and he reached out, and we met with someone else too, and we ended up working with him. And it took probably 4 to 6 months from the beginning of the process to selling and everything. But afterwards, Nick has kept in contact with us. I mean, when we moved, I think he sent us a nice card after COVID and everything hit. He brought a meal over to us at one point with his real estate card. And I think about, well, why did he do that? I'm like, well, he's a nice person, but chances are we are going to talk up his experience of working with Nick to our family, our friends, other people who are looking to buy a house, and we'll probably refer business out. So do referrals play into this loop someplace?
Yes. So that's actually a little bit post-purchase into that loyalty loop.
Okay.
So doing a referral program. So as a consumer, if I say I need a realtor, does anybody have it? And you're right there because you loved your experience with him. You are now my touch point on behalf of that realtor. And that's me as a realtor. That's what I'd want, right? Like I want people's words of mouth saying I'm great, and because then I'm not paying you to advertise for me. Like I just made a good experience for you, and you're now loyal to me, and you're loyal to me because I just cared about you. I have a relationship with you, and I brought you a meal. Right. And gave you my business card.
And he's a good guy. He wasn't just, and I feel like when I see things like that, he wasn't just in there for our business, nor is he just doing this because he wants the referral. I mean, I think he's a good person, and he's a good business person too. So
right. Yeah. If you're a small restaurant, there's a lot of point reward programs that like if you're using like a Toast for your point of sales screen. Toast has one built in there automatically where people can get points.
Toast is like a website?
Toast is your back of house management. So like it does your receipts, and it has like all your menu items. So when you like hit as a server, when you hit the button, like it's all your point of sales dashboard.
Cool. Okay.
So if you're running Toast, like they have that. And a lot of the small business point of sales has a built-in rewards program. So that's accessible to small businesses, and it'll send emails, it'll send text messages. You just have to know what you want out of those and make sure that the one that you're looking at getting offers those features.
Okay.
There's also an email list. Mailchimp is free for 1,999 emails.
Is that right? That's the number?
Contacts. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's free. And I think you're allowed to send, I want to say just under 2,000 contacts or 2,000 emails a month from it on the free version. And they make it pretty simple for you. You know, small local businesses, I think people are a lot more forgiving if it's not perfect because they know you're small and local, and they just appreciate that you're trying. I actually did a study with a photographer friend of mine on food photography. So if you're a restaurant and you're worried about, you know, taking pretty pictures, if you know the basics of photography and you just get good lighting, people will interact with it the same as if it was a professional photography.
Really?
It just has to, so check your lighting and make sure stuff's in focus, and like that can be used on your social media, that can be used in your emails, that can be used on your website. And you can take it with your phone because phone cameras are amazing these days.
They're getting like better and better, I feel like too. Like they're just so crisp, and
I think the one on my phone currently is better than the first point and shoot one that I had.
Isn't that crazy? Like, how are they so crisp? You know, they're tiny, you know?
It's smaller too.
So it's good to hear. I mean, you don't necessarily have to have a research team in place or hire an agency to do this work for you. I mean, what I heard you say is you can kind of plot this out on your own as a small business owner, as a medium-sized business, and think about the process, you know, not necessarily, it doesn't have to be a large investment. Obviously, if you've got the budget, hire to do some of this for you. But if you're just getting started, there's some processes that you can take from this and you can apply to your business.
Right. And the easiest way to start, if you're a small business or a big business or any size business, because I think everybody should just pay attention to that, is know what your business is about. If you know what your values are, you know what you believe in, you take those and you apply them to your tactics. So let's say you're a small business and you value the people you work for. Today's industry with COVID, me as a customer, I'm going to know you value the people you work for, and I'm going to appreciate it because you provide them with masks, and maybe those masks are branded.
Right.
You have touchless pay. You put the screen up. There might be hand sanitizer just around your store or your restaurant for easy access. You have stuff that normally people touch all the time. It's behind the counter and prepackaged, so all you have to do is hand it over. That's kind of more restaurant.
Have you been out to a restaurant, Julia?
I don't want to go into a restaurant. I will take out or have delivered. I've been trying to support local, but I'm not comfortable going into it yet because there's so many people not wearing masks.
Yeah, I think it's a little nerve-wracking. So there's a couple places near me that have outdoor seating. So I had a friend reach out to me over the weekend. She's like, we haven't seen each other forever. We used to do brunch like every month or so.
Yeah.
And she's like, hey, how about we get together to do brunch? I see this restaurant near me. It's called Johnny Black's. If you're in Metro Detroit, it's at 15 in Moravian. I think they've got a couple other locations. But so I called on Saturday and I called to say, do you have a reservation? Can I make a reservation for outside, like right when you open at 11? And the lady's like, yeah, sure. So she made a reservation. I showed up at 11 and parking lot was empty. I was a little nervous. And then as I'm walking in, the manager called and said, I see you have a reservation, but we're not open till noon. And he was super apologetic. And he's like, I'm not sure who told you 11. I'm like, well, I'm going to go sit outside. And it was adjacent. You could walk into the sitting area, but we sat down and we just sat and talked for an hour. And then the waitress brought the menu over and it was a paper menu. And the paper menu just stayed there for a placemat afterwards. And they were wearing face masks and the tables were really far spread out. There was nobody there because they just opened. But it was like the coolest experience just being out in public. I was nervous, but I was like, I had a Bloody Mary. It was like the best Bloody Mary I've ever had, like ever of all time. And we had lunch and it was just nice. But I agree with you. I think there's things they can do to make that service experience feel safer. Wearing masks, they were everything, when they were passing out a straw, they weren't holding with their hand, they were holding with a napkin and little touches, the paper menus that are disposable. So we're not touching things. I think that can be very important.
Yep. I've seen restaurants where they have like a card stand on like the napkin thing where it has like, if you need service, flip this over, put your mask on, and then a masked server will come over when like
that's a nice idea.
Shortly after.
Yeah.
I've seen like touchless menus where you use your phone and there's like a QR scan that you scan automatically and it pulls up the menu.
Yeah.
Which is cool. But then you also have to think about people who might not have smartphones.
Yeah.
And for that inclusivity type of thing. So just know your audience. That comes to kind of the second thing. Like, well, if you know what your values are as a business, then you need to know who you're selling to. So grouping broadly.
Do you want me to pull up that slide deck again? Because I know you had something in there.
Sure.
You want to look at that? Do you want me to go to the next page of it now?
So the next page, might be hard to see just because I didn't think about my target audience and where this would be used. So that might be small inside people's screens. But this is essentially tactics that you can think about within each part of this continuum, and then a description of like what you're paying attention to. So that first unaware part, you're trying to get people aware. So it's all the awareness tactics, sponsorships, speaking engagements, just traditional or digital ads, SEO. So when people Google, like, where do I get my car fixed? It's going to pull up like your SEO. So if you're an auto mechanic, you're writing blogs, you're doing YouTube videos, you've claimed your Google business. I cannot stress that enough. If you have a location, claim your Google business page and start asking for reviews, because that is going to bump you up significantly. In the aware, but they don't need you yet. This is just trying to stay front of mind. So when that trigger does hit, they think of you. So the coaster, right? Like I think on the coaster that you have, Brenda, it doesn't actually say what we do. Like, I think it's just our name and contact information.
Yeah, it just says your name and your logo. Yeah, and I think I'm like, it's an agency. I mean, the conference we were at kind of about marketing and digital. So I'm like, it's
So
probably
the new one, the new one actually says up at the top, strategy, design,
okay.
and marketing.
Cool.
Granted, I don't work here anymore, but the guy who owns the company is a really good friend of mine.
Yeah.
And then it says coffee is always on us. So,
Mm-hmm.
a touch point for us is if, we actually gave out coffee mugs to some local diners. And so people had these. And if you got our mug at a diner, you would kind of be aware of us. And then if, something came up, you're like, oh, marketing and branding, I know who to call.
Well, it's more just visibility. And like for me, I was looking at this every night without really knowing, but I knew your name because when I bumped into you another place, I'm like, are you the same Julianna who's coaster? And you're like, yeah. So it was the subliminal.
I would be very surprised if there was another person with my exact same name.
Yeah. It was like, it wasn't like Joe Smith where it's like, oh, there's a million. It's
right.
Julianna Kunemeyer. It's very unique. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and then also if you have newsletters, like anything that you can get people to opt in, this will just keep building that relationship. And so that when that trigger hits, they'll think of you. You can actually get people, like trigger people's triggers if you time content correctly. I did strategy for a Continuum for a children's hospital here in town, and was like, hey, that if we say, hey, school's coming up, if your kid's in sports, have a baseline CAT scan. So if they get tackled and they have a concussion, they have something done, or they have what it's supposed to look like beforehand.
Against, right. Yeah.
And people don't know that that's a thing, right? So you can, as a hospital, they can trigger people to do that.
Baselines, yeah.
Because it's right before the season hits, right? And they're right, I should do this. And now I have triggered that trigger, and I've also provided the answer all in the same thing. Like I will be there to do this for you. That initial consideration set. So everything from above that. So all the tactics that you've been doing up until this point, those are the things that are going to help keep you front of mind. Active evaluation. This is when you partner with influencers to get their honest feedback. Don't pay for them to say that it's just good. Have them use it and give honest feedback. Ask for reviews after people bought stuff. If you're a small shop and you caught those emails, every month, just like take all the new emails or all the emails of the people who've purchased from you for that month and send them like, hey, you bought something from us this month. Could you give us your feedback on it? Here's a link to our Google review, or here's a link to that product. Leave a review. You can also ask for testimonials if you're an agency or a tax accountant. Do it in your slow season, by all means. I
thought that was a really good idea. Giving customers products to sample and asking for their feedback. I love that idea. And it's got to be honest. It can't be like, only tell us if you like it, because that's not going to help. Like, tell us, do you like it? Do you not? I mean, if you're a restaurant, trying new menu items, do you like the flavor? What did you like? What did you not like about it?
And that also plays into what you value. If you actually want your products to be better, you can give a free sample or partner with somebody and say, how about we just give you a sneak peek of everything we're trying out? And we just want you to give us your honest feedback so we can make it better. And then they're going to share that experience to whoever's willing to listen. Like, so hey, I got the inside scoop.
Yeah, that's very true. You're that identified influencer. How do customer satisfaction surveys play into this process, Julie? At what point do they, or is it entirely different from this?
Yeah, so that is kind of the post-purchase and loyalty kind of experience. So me as a consumer, I want brands to make me feel like they care about what I think, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So if they come at me and they say, do you have time to review this? I'm going to be like, oh, maybe. And you have to think about when you deliver that message, if you're trying to get somebody to respond, because middle of the day at lunch, maybe they'll respond. 6 o'clock at night, they might not respond because they're doing dinner, getting kids down, driving from somewhere. So
do you have experience with, and I'm putting you a little bit on the spot here, but do you have experience with surveys, or do you have certain survey tools you like? I mean, I remember Zoomerang back in the day, and what's the one with the word chimp in it, or monkey? Survey Monkey.
Yeah, Survey Monkey. Yep.
Or there's the big one, Qualtrics. I remember that one.
I have not heard of that one.
Yeah.
I think it depends.
Yeah.
It depends on what you need out of it. And like if free is a thing that you might need, you could probably just use Google Forms. I know I've used that a lot. Okay. Your website, if you have a company website, there might be a survey tool just within that that integrates if you're doing like a WooCommerce, or if you're on any of Squarespace or something like that. A lot of those have like forms that you could just have like, please fill out this form. And then take it and do with it what you need to.
Gotcha. I'm going to put those on there. Maybe this prompts other people, if you're watching right now, you might think about, and I hadn't even thought about Google Forms, because it's all integrated with the Google Suite. It keeps all the information. And my experience has been too, Julie, I think when you do a survey on Google Forms, all the information's there and you can still download it and export it, right?
Yep. Okay.
That's good.
Yep. Cool. And then if you do it on Google Forms, it can be exported. Here's me nerding out over data analytics. You can put it into Google Data Studio, which would visualize it all for you. Gotcha. So you could start to see trends and that sort of thing. But that's probably, for small businesses, that probably is just too much. You can look at your stuff and kind of see a trend and get a feel for things as they come in usually. Yeah. But so asking those, soliciting for those from consumers will then help you in that evaluation phase if you start to leverage it and use them. Because those are the things that people are going to look for when they are looking for your service or product. Awesome. And it'll weigh heavier.
Yeah. And I like how we're building upon that process too. And I like the term continuum versus just funnel where you're just dropping people in. I mean, I like that this is a continuous process, and it sounds like there's always things that you can add and evolve. And especially when things like COVID hit the market, then we got to shift our business and figure out how to readjust and reassess that too.
Right. Yeah. And so then, like, if you pay attention to all those tactics and make sure, or all the things that can kind of fit in there as a tactic, they snowball into each other. And then when somebody hits that trigger, they immediately just buy again. Yeah. Which makes it the loyalty loop, right?
Yeah, there you go. There you have it. Well, I think I could go like for another hour talking about this, but I want to be kind of respectful of your time. And what I'd like to do now is just, if you guys have any questions, comment below if you have a question for Julie, anything that you'd like to ask her. And I've been peppering you with questions kind of along the way here. And while we're waiting for questions to come in, I'm just going to see if anyone else had joined. I think I brought all the comments on from earlier. I want to welcome Sylvia, who's watching us from Seattle as well. So we're all over. And I think sometimes you might see these two where, this person right here, it says linking in from Rochester, Michigan. I think what happens when I see this is the person whose this is you might have your privacy settings in place on LinkedIn. So you have to be completely public. Your profile photo has to be public. Your name has to be public. Everything has to be public in order for us to see you. Otherwise, that's where we get the names that are kind of blank that are listed in here. So I'm giving a little bit of time to wait for the questions to come in here, guys, because of the fact that there's a little bit of a delay. So I think it's about 30 seconds from the time that we go live on StreamYard to when it actually goes live on LinkedIn. So if you have a question, feel free to ask those now. What I'll do while we're waiting to see if any additional questions come in is just to remind you guys of a few things. First, I want to pull up Julianna's LinkedIn profile. And I'm going to pull this up in the background here as well. And Julie, are you open to connections from individuals on LinkedIn, or what's your
Yes, shoot me a message.
Okay, perfect.
I will warn you, I usually don't connect with people unless I know them. Okay. Because I never want to have somebody say, hey, this person, they're connected. Can you introduce me? And I'd be like, you know what? Actually, I don't know that person. Yeah. So don't be offended. We can have a conversation, and after a while, I will definitely connect with you.
All right. Awesome. Fair enough. And I always tell people too, if you're trying to invite someone to connect with you, personalize your invitation, make a note in there and let Julie know that you watched her in the LinkedIn Live interview today. If your company is looking for some help on the consumer continuum, with some background information or some support there, let her know that in your invitation. And, but be honest with the folks when you're inviting them to connect on LinkedIn. And I always like to include that personal note in there because I find it helps to get more of the invitations accepted, and then you've got kind of a dialogue as a starting point.
Especially if we met in person and your profile picture looks completely different, it gives me context. But granted, that won't be an issue with this.
Right. Well, we were just talking before the call about the fact that, nowadays, I don't know about you, Julie, but the last time I was in for a haircut, I think it was probably late January. I remember I was leaving the appointment and I get like highlight and colors and stuff like that. And she's like, do you want to make your appointment for the next one? I'm like, sure. And I made it in like late March. And I can pull my hair back, guys. I mean, I feel bad for the people that are dealing with, the guys that are just bushy haired and, everything's happening right now. But hey, we're in the world that we're in. We're all in this together,
You bring back mullets because you can just cut the front for yourself and just keep the back. COVID.
We could do that. My 15-year-old son, he has like a little bit longer hair, and I keep joking with him. I go, get a bowl, a roll of tape and scissors, and I'll meet you in the kitchen. And he's like, what? He's like, don't touch my head. But we got to make do with what we have, right? But especially if you do on your LinkedIn, if you do have an older photo on there where people can't make you out, it makes it a little bit more difficult. But we all look a little different right now because we're all in COVID times right now.
Yeah.
So, awesome. So Julie, as we wrap here today, any final comments for the group, tips for folks, if they don't have a process in place with this consumer continuum, how can they get started with this?
Yep. So make sure you know what your business is about, know what your values are, and then look at that continuum and find tactics that actually speak to those. So if you value education, what tactics and where are you putting your efforts that actually say that you care about education? If you care about the environment, what are you doing there? If you care about just general, I don't know, you want to make the world a better place. Right. Where are you putting your efforts, and what are you saying when you put the effort in to show people that? Actions always speak louder than words. So once you know what your value is, look at that continuum, speak to those values with all the tactics that you're doing, and then look at your personas, the people who you want to attract, the people who are buying from you now, and then think through with empathy. You have to be empathetic. Like, okay, this person may not have a phone that is a smartphone. How are they going to do touchless, or what is our solution for menus if they can't scan a QR code?
Or if they don't want to. I mean, I've seen, like, before COVID, you walk into a McDonald's and there's no people at the register. You got to go to a touch screen and order. And I see these lovely little older people, and they're like, you want me to what?
Like,
here's my $1 for my coffee. And they're like, you got to go to the kiosk.
When I worked at the UX house, it was one of those things where if you design for the extremes, so like in the digital world, it's someone who is super tech savvy, always ahead of the curve, to somebody who doesn't even know how to turn on their computer. If you design for those people, you catch everybody in between. So always design for the extremes. And think about it. I think that's the biggest thing, is if you have your personas and you can take a step back and you can kind of walk through each touch point, like, how is this persona going to use it? Does it make sense for them? Or is it?
The personas could be a whole other conversation, Julie. And I think I might be just planting the seed here right now. I don't know. I think we might want to schedule another interview at a later date, and we could talk about, developing personas, what they are, and what they're for.
Yeah. I could talk personas all day, every day.
Okay, awesome. All right, Julie. Well, I think we're going to start to wrap here today. I just want to remind everyone, if you're still watching this later, you can still, leave a comment below. Let us know that you're watching it in playback later on. If you have any questions for Julie about any of the content that we shared here today, definitely still drop your questions in the comments. I will share with Julie the playback link to the Facebook video, the LinkedIn video, and then I'm going to share this on YouTube later. You might be watching this on YouTube. If so, still leave a comment and I'll share your information. And I'll also include Julie's contact information, her LinkedIn profile on there for you if you'd like to get a hold of her. Julie, thank you so much. This has been a delight talking with you today.
Having me. It's been fun nerding out with you.
Yeah, good stuff. And like I said, we're going to do this again. I think we could have a second conversation about persona maybe in another month or so. We'll continue the dialogue. This is good stuff here. All right, guys. All right. Great.
Bye,
well,
everyone.
Thank you guys for watching, and make sure you leave a comment before you leave here. Click also to share this video along if you found this helpful. And I would also encourage you to please go to my website, mellermarketing.com/subscribe, and you'll get notification of future LinkedIn live videos as well as LinkedIn strategy tips. I send those out about once a week. Thank you for watching. Stay safe and stay healthy, and I'll see you guys online later on in the week. Take care.
Ooh, bye. Ooh, there we go.